It's Coach Ryan from FFLEX Team FFLEX. I'm here in the office ready to break down for you another muscle anatomy. Today we're going to talk about your deltoids, okay? Deltoids, you got three different muscle groups, three different areas we're going to talk about. I'm going to show you the anatomy, kind of how it works, what it looks like on actual bodies and stuff like that. And then I'm also going to break down some exercises for you that's going to be the best kind of quality exercise to hit to develop these muscles, and even into the isolation specifics of trying to hit each individual head of the deltoid. Alright, so we take a look right here, you guys. We got this picture up on the back. We're looking at the deltoids, okay? This picture actually clearly highlights all three muscles. I'm going to show you right here. So here is the actual deltoids itself, alright? So this is the shoulder muscle. It's compiled of three separate heads. So what we're looking at is going to be the first part of the deltoid, which is the front head, right? So this is called the front deltoid, alright? And this is on both sides right here. So if we're looking at this guy from the front, we'll be able to see it on the front of his shoulder, but also in this pose we can see it on the back. So that's the front deltoid. Then we have this deltoid in the middle. This is called the medial or lateral deltoid. So this is right in the middle of the shoulder there, and that's going to kind of sweep us into the final part of the deltoid, which is the posterior or rear deltoid head, okay? So this is right here, boom, posterior delt. So we have all three of these heads right here. We got the front, we got the lateral, and then we got the posterior. That makes three different heads of the deltoid, totally and complete shoulder muscle. So depending on who you are and what your goals are, if you're just trying to train in the gym, you want to shape up your shoulders, you're going to want to know how to train each one of these. If you're a competitor or something like that, it's even more important that you know how to train each part of the delt, because that's what's going to get you the shape, the size, and the proportions that you need to compete in your sport, etc. Okay? So let's take a look at another diagram here. So to further highlight this, what we're just talking about, that was on an actual human figure, but we can see right here, anterior front deltoid right here, blue pen, no. Anterior front deltoid, right, like we talked about, medial lateral head here, posterior rear chain there. Okay, so same difference. If we're looking at the body, that's what we're looking at. So how do we train each one of these areas, right? So if we want to train, let's say, the front deltoid here on this diagram. So we take this, boom, I want to work on the front delt right in here, okay? So any movement that I'm going to have my arm in front of my body is going to cause me to work the front deltoid. So doing any type of a raise, right? So if you think about the dumbbells, you can do a front dumbbell raise. You can do a front cable raise. You can do more specific movements where you're going to be doing presses with barbells in front of you. You can do presses with dumbbells in front of you. Things like that, wherever the arm is moving in front of the body, that's going to hit the front deltoid to a larger degree than other types of exercises, okay? So if I want to hit into the lateral head though, right? So if we go back to this picture, the lateral head of the delt right in here, this is the one that makes your shoulders look really round. So this is the one that most people really need to work on. They want to shape or whatever, if they're a competitor or something like that, or you just want really round shoulders, you need to know that the lateral deltoid is the one that does that medial head, okay? That gives you that kind of really super round, standout look that fills out your shirts, that looks good in tank tops, it looks great in pose, whatever. So if you want to work on the lateral head of the delt, you're going to do that in a number of different ways. If we want to hit this medial head, we're going to go ahead and do that by doing a majority of side raises. Okay, that's really how you target this head of the deltoid. The lateral raise with the dumbbell, that is the best way to kind of hit this. So you can do that with the dumbbell standing, you can do that with both arms, single arms. You can do this laying on a bench sideways. You can do this leaning this way, that way. You can do this with a cable. You can do it with it in front of your body, behind your body, etc. But the lateral motion of bringing your arm out to the side, that's going to be the big bang for your buck for hitting the medial deltoid, okay? That's what's going to really shape them, bring them that roundness overall. Not to say it's not hitting another exercise. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But moving into the posterior deltoid, okay? So this one is the most neglected deltoid head. You'll see a lot of people that have really good front delt and decent side delt, but they're not going to ever really have the full shape in the back. So it's kind of really round and then it's just flat, right? We see this a lot with competitors, we see this a lot with amateurs, and it tends to be due to the fact that you really are going to hit these other areas, the anterior and the medial head, a lot more, doing basically every type of exercise versus the posterior deltoid, okay? So as you can see, the posterior deltoid is very much a smaller grouping of that deltoid head. So if we go over here to this diagram, it's going to literally be this right here. So that very tiny chunk of the delt. And to hit this, it is more difficult to do because it's on the back of your body, for one, okay? So it's on your back, which means you can't see, you can't focus on it as good, etc., right? This guy's got to look forward, obviously. Eyes don't go to the back of your fucking head. But it's also easy to use your traps too much, to use your triceps too much, to work into your rhomboids and all that too much. And so you can actually take the tension off of the rear delt and it won't train the way you want it to. So that muscle is actually best trained doing other types of raises, right? Or things where we're gonna like bend over and we're gonna do raise back like this in a limited range of motion, cable raises like that, bent over flies, stuff like that where we're really going to just isolate into that. But it has to be done light and it has to be done with intention to be doing it at a manner that is not going to involve other muscles, right? So if you're rocking back and forth, you're getting a lot of shoulder blade movement, it's not going to hit it. What you really need to do is be slow, controlled, and isolate into this exact muscle group when you train the posterior rear deltoid head, okay? So that kind of covers all of them. Basically, you guys, to sum this up, it's very simple if you think of it this way. Front delt, you want to train that, you do stuff where you raise your arm to the front. Lateral delt, you do stuff where you raise your arm to the side. Posterior delt, you do things where you're in a prone position, facing down, whatever, and you're doing raises backwards, okay? So you're pulling your arm back. So the raises are a majority of how you hit these different muscles. And the reason that is this is a ball and socket joint, okay? That means your shoulder can move in all ranges of motion, right? I can raise my arm forward, backward, I can go side to side, I can go behind me, I can go all around. It is the only joint that really moves like that in the upper body to that degree, right? The wrists are going to be able to do that, down into the legs, we get the hips, the ankles, things like that. But it's not like a hinge joint, right? Like your arm is just a hinge joint, meaning that this goes flexion and it goes extension. Very simple to train the bicep that way because that's exactly how it works. We can't per se move the elbow side to side. We can't really twist the elbow. We can only work with flexion extension. However, since this is a much more complicated joint, can move in all different motions, we need to train it in a lot of different manners. So the raises are always going to target each head more isolatively than the other ones, okay? But the best way to actually train your shoulders is by doing presses. Now, shoulders need to be stable. A lot of people get shoulder problems and stuff like that. It's from unstable shoulders, not training stability, not getting actual good muscular development, and also very poor posture in general. So if you really want to train your deltoids to the highest degree, you really want to get the shape, you're going to want to do exercise like this dude's probably doing right here. He's doing a shoulder press, okay? It's going to hit all three heads of the deltoid at once. If you go into a shoulder press, you're going to get the front delt. You go into a shoulder press, you're going to get the lateral delt. If you're going into a shoulder press with proper form, you're going to get the rear delt. You're going to hit all three heads of the delts and we'll be able to do it with stability. Here's a quick tip from me as to how you can train your shoulders better. When you do overhead presses, hold at the top of the press, okay? So a lot of people do half reps or whatever. That's not hitting the muscle in its full extent. You have to fully lengthen it and fully shorten it. It is fully shortened completely overhead, and if you do a hold at the top where you're going to hold it for 4 or 5 seconds, you're going to get a lot better stability, a lot more fatigue into this muscle group, and you'll be able to train it to a higher degree because you're going to prevent more injury, etc. So good shoulder workouts, okay? We just covered all the muscles, we covered the anatomy a bit. If you want to train your shoulders to the highest degree, doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing, you need to pick yourself 4, 5, 6 exercises you're going to do. What you're going to do first is 2 or 3 compound movements, okay? So this could be upright rows, this could be barbell presses, it could be dumbbell presses, it could be whatever, but they're heavier exercises, right? Stuff that you're going to be able to do to a heavier, higher degree with more load, more weight, and the goal here is going to be to develop all the muscles, hit them all at once, okay? So we can do things like cleans and snatches even and stuff like that if you're into the Olympic lifts. But really, we're talking about doing overhead presses, holds with the presses, pauses with the presses, all this kind of stuff to really hit the delts in a very nice degree, okay? So that's going to hit all 3 heads. Those you're going to want to work in the 8 to 10 rep range, maybe even down into the heavier 6 or something like that. If you're trying to really pack some different mass on, you need to get stronger so you can lift other weights with higher reps, right? So that, I would say, do 2 to 3 exercises that are just like that. If you want something generic right now, do an upright row, do a clean, and do an overhead press, okay? Do something like that, or do 2 different presses. Then you're going to want to hit 2 or 3 mainly actually 3 exercises, at least 1 for each head of the actual delt itself. So then you're going to want to go back through. You've trained all the areas already. Now with your first 2 to 3 exercises, you're going to want to go back through and hit 1 for each muscle. So you want to go back and do a front raise or something of that nature where we're going to target that again. You want to go do a lateral raise. You should always do lateral raises in your shoulder training period, no matter who you are and what you're doing, because it's really the only way to directly target that medial deltoid. So you should do a lateral raise, posterior raise, same kind of difference, back fly, whatever. You should go hit 1 of each. If you want something simple, just do dumbbell front raise, just do dumbbell lateral raise, just do posterior delt, bent over, back flies, whatever. And you can mix this up the way you do it, right? You can do it with pauses, you can do it with tempos, you can do it with different ranges of motion, you can do it with cables and dumbbells and whatever the hell. But the point is, you want to have a variance of exercise, okay? You want to target these muscles in a different manner. You want to do the strength training in the beginning with the compound movements where we're working the stability, etc. And then we want to fine tune and shape with each individual muscle itself. Deltoid means 3 muscles. If you're not training all 3 muscles, you're cheating part of the group, okay? You're going to develop unevenly, you're going to risk injury, you're going to have health problems with the shoulder girdle, etc. And you're not going to look the way that you want. So if you really want to train to your max potential, make sure that you're doing an exercise for each delt piece, and you're also going to work the strength and stability of that muscle group. Coach Rye is out.